What's up, YouTube? Capital G here, giving you guys a quick discussion on Magician Souls, the single hottest and most sought after card in the entire Legendary Duelist Magical Heroes set, and why, when it comes to this card, we're honestly just screwed. I don't think that there is going to be any salvation, at least not anytime soon. Now, spoiler alert, if you guys are looking for a video with a happy ending, this is probably not going to be the video for you. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you guys and tell you guys that I have some secret spicy tech for Spirals or Dark Magician that's going to solve all your problems, and that you don't need to pick this card up, because that would just be a lie. Like, you do need Magician Souls if you're going to run those decks, at least if you want to run them at the most optimal levels and make them as good as possible. I really just want to give you guys a real deep discussion, not just a surface level discussion as to why this card is so expensive. I really want to talk about this card from all angles, because I think that the more I've looked into Magician Souls, the more I've actually become fascinated by this card. Now, currently, the price is almost at $120. It's actually been going up, and I think it's because people are realizing that it's even better than was anticipated. Now, obviously, when I first reviewed the card, I immediately realized that it was going to be amazing in the Dark Magician deck. I was like, okay, this is an absolute standard, because it can allow Dark Magician to do things that it couldn't in the past. Most notably, and Team Samurai pointed this out in his deck profile, it allows Dark Magician to trigger Dark Magical Circle in its first turn. And obviously that's super important when you're talking about going second. For those of you who are just kind of unfamiliar with Dark Magician and its playstyle, it's very similar to decks like Artifacts or Generators. You do a lot of your plays and or disrupting during your opponent's turn. So being able to activate Circle and finally like going second, using the Circle to get rid of one of your opponent's problem cards, is kind of invaluable to the deck. Based on that alone, I was like, okay, this card's an automatic 3 of in the deck. It gives it some much needed go second offense and makes the deck more consistent. The fact that you could pitch your spells and traps to the graveyard, some things like Magician's Navigation, which are arguably better in the graveyard, that was just kind of icing on the cake. I thought that it would make the deck more consistent. So with that said, I only thought about this card in the context of Dark Magician when I initially reviewed it, and even then I thought this card is absolutely fantastic. It'll probably push Dark Magician more closer to that roguish level that maybe we can make a regional top 8 level in competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! I never thought in my wildest imaginations that it would be something that a top 5 or a top 3 deck in the competitive meta was actually going to be using and or abusing. And we all know that's where we are now with this new format. This card is absolutely ridiculous and absurd in the Spiral deck, and it probably pushes them to having the highest ceiling in all of Yu-Gi-Oh! And it's probably the best combo starter that they have in the entire deck, as crazy as that sounds, because obviously it was meant to be a Dark Magician card, but when you look at Magician Souls in Spiral, it's absurd what you can do with it. For starters, Souls allows you to send your Spiral Master Plan directly from your deck to the graveyard, and it does so as a cost, so your opponent can't use something like Ash Blossom and Joy Spring, the most popular competitive Yu-Gi-Oh card, to actually stop that effect. Master Plan is super vital to Spirals because I believe that like numerically speaking, it provides the most card advantage out of any of the cards in a vacuum for Spirals, so it kind of allows you to get all your combo pieces together. And then on top of that, like, you're no longer super reliant on getting Double Helix's effect off to get to Master Plan to like have access to the card. Souls also allowed Spiral players to use their mission cards as kind of like fodder. Now you can just pitch a Spiral Rescue, or you can pitch maybe a Spiral Assault. You can pitch those to draw cards that can be extenders or cards to stop your opponent, and at the same time you can reap the rewards from those cards in the graveyard. You can activate your Spiral Mission Rescue, banish it from the graveyard, and then reborn your Spiral Master Plan and just kind of combo off. In addition to that, this is a card that didn't even eat up your normal summon for Spirals, and ironically is a level 1 monster, so it actually works with all those other level 1s in Spirals. It helps you go to Exceed plays, get free hand traps like DD Crow to disrupt your opponent, so it kind of was like the perfect storm. And when you really combine all of that, it kind of takes Spiral, a deck that was rogue tierish at best, and makes it one of the top contenders in the meta. We know Spiral has always had a high ceiling, which is why 3 of its cards are still on the Forbidden and Limited list, but that's where a lot of people thought that the hype with Magician Souls would stop, right? You think to yourself, okay, Cap, obviously it's insanely good in Dark Magician, which is a casual deck, but it's probably one of the most popular archetypes of all time, so the casuals are going to want it. The meta players are going to want the card too because it works in one of the top 3 decks in the meta in Spiral, and this is probably where you expect the discussion to end, right? Because for the most part, this is about as far as most Yu-Gi tubers have gone. They've covered Magician Souls from 2 angles. You've got the casual side and the Dark Magician angle, and then obviously you have the competitive side and the Spiral angle. But what if I told you there was one more side out there, one more side that almost no one knows about? And truth be told, I'll admit it, I didn't know about this either until about 24 hours ago. I saw a post on Reddit by Rebirth of Sheen, shout outs to you. Then I checked out his YouTube video and some of his combo tutorials, and I was like, oh my goodness. I think that Magician Souls might actually be usable as a mini splashable engine in a lot of archetypes, and I think it's kind of because of the design of the card. A lot of people look at it in Spiral, but they haven't really figured out that it can be applied for many other archetypes that are designed very similar to Spiral. Now, I'm not saying that you're going to see the same insane results as Spirals, because Spiral already came equipped with the perfect spellcaster. We've already talked about Master Plan and how vital it is to the Spiral strategy and all the synergy, so I don't want to rehash on that. Just understand that with Spiral, they didn't have to tech anything else in other than the copies of Magician Souls. But what Rebirth of Sheen actually does with his little engine, he plays the mythical beast monsters. He plays Master Cerberus and then Jackal King, and what this allows him to do is essentially send the Master Cerberus to the graveyard from his deck if he wants to special summon his Magician Soul, so obviously that's not a problem. But if he happens to hard draw the Master Cerberus, which you would think, Cap, he happened to hard draw one of his bricks, but it's not technically a brick, because if you hard draw Cerberus, you can activate it in the Pendulum Scale, get your Jackal King, and then activate Jackal King and just special summon your Cerberus. This gives you a huge beater if you're going second, and it gives you potentially spot removal against your opponent. Plus, I believe Master Cerberus, if you get a certain amount of counters on it, 4 I believe, it actually gets a little bit of protection, so it actually gives him a little bit of offense if he does happen to hard draw it. So really, it's not that much of an engine that is going to be very bricky if you happen to draw some of the spellcasters that you don't want. But the real reason that I think Magician Souls can be such an exploitable card and splashed into a multitude of archetypes is because of the design of Yu-Gi-Oh! Since like the Arc V era. Let's just think about this from a meta perspective, and I'm talking about just competitive meta archetypes. How many meta archetypes since Arc V have either a Rhoda Field spell or spell and trap cards that have bonus effects in the graveyard, do crazy shit by banishing them, or maybe even link monsters that only require 1 monster of their archetype? I feel like those are all critical factors as to why this card can be so exploitable. Let's look at an archetype like Evil Eye, for example. Yes, it's not competitively meta, but we're just using this as an example. Evil Eye is an archetype that is tailor-made to be exploited by Magician Souls. Number 1, it has a Rhoda Field spell. This means that if you special summon Magician Souls after you've used the Evil Eye field spell, you've already gotten your search for Surziel, so you don't really care about the field spell anymore. You can just pop that card and get a +1, but in addition to that, you can use the Evil Eye of Selene, or you can use the field spell as fodder to get the Evil Eye of Selene back from your graveyard. In addition to all of that, their best link monster, the Link 2 Gorgon, she only requires 1 Evil Eye monster. This means that Magician Souls can be perfect link fodder into climbing to a boss monster that you already want to make anyways after getting all of your pluses. Trickstar is another one, and this is obviously way more applicable if we get more copies of Light Stage off of the FNL list anytime soon. But let's just say, for example, you open with Terraforming a Light Stage, activate Light Stage to get your Candina. Light Stage is already paid for itself. You can easily give that card up and just draw a card with Magician Souls and go +1. But what if you want to go a little more plus? Well, they have Trickstar Reincarnation. We know that that card is valuable from the graveyard because it's a monster reborn for any of your Trickstar monsters from the graveyard. So if you have that in your hand, or you want to search that from Candina, why not just give up your Light Stage and your Reincarnation, draw 2 cards deeper into your deck, and you can still easily convert your Magician Souls on field to a defensive card like a Link Karibo, or you can combine it with another Trickstar monster into a Nightmare or something like that, and then instantly reborn the copy of your Trickstar that you just used for Link material. I'm not saying that these are like the most amazing combos, but I'm saying that the structure of the game kind of permits that you be able to do this with so many archetypes. Invoked was was another one that I thought about. Invocation activates from the graveyard, so it's actually pretty good fodder. Magical Meltdown, the second that you activate it, it instantly pays for itself. You don't really care if you have it on the field as long as you already got your Alistar. I guess what I'm saying is, because of the way Konami has designed Yu-Gi-Oh! Over like the last 5 years, there are so many different ways to exploit Magician Souls, even when it comes to like competitively established Yu-Gi-Oh! Decks. So many archetypes that have Rhoda field spells that get you to your best or your most core monster, then you don't really care what happens to them. So many spells and traps within these archetypes that float from the graveyard. So many archetypes where your boss monster that you want to summon anyways only requires one monster from your archetype. Archetypes like Evil Eyes and Scraps and Orcus, they all pretty much fall into that category. I think this is a fascinating card, and I don't think Konami realized that it was going to be so useful outside of Dark Magician. When you look at the card, you see its potential as a maybe splashable competitive engine. You see it in Spiral, you see what it does for Dark Magician, and the fact that there really isn't much incentive for Konami to reprint this card since it is so new. I don't really think that the price is going to come down anytime soon, and that's why, guys, I think that we're just screwed when it comes to Magician Souls. If you have any aspirations of playing this card, you're just gonna have to bite the bullet, steal some, or I guess if you live in North America, import some European copies. But those are just my thoughts. I want to know yours in the comment section below. Whatever you guys think, leave it in the comment section. Thank you guys for watching. As always, subscribe if you have not already, and turn on that notification bell for daily videos.